Say, have you ever seen Shimoda Ryuhei's American directorial debut film, The Midnight Meat Train?
No, I haven't. What's it about?
Let me tell you what it's not about.
What do you mean?
A train made of meat. A big ground chuck locomotive with sausage stacks bellowing hickory smoke and rolling through America's heart lands on big round pork shoulders.
Would a meat train have a meat track?
Oh yeah, it'd definitely have a meat track. Cube steaks woven together with giant strips of bacon and filled in with chicken gizzard gravel.
Wouldn't people eat it?
Well, it depends. It wouldn't really be cooked, but I guess if they like rare tracks. There were a lot of people looking to capitalize on the visual kei boom of the late 90s, and thus independent record labels became a huge driving force in the development of the scene and the genre itself. Often financed by larger record labels and managed by experienced bandsmen, they built images for bands, promoted them, and created relationships with, or even purchased live houses and studios to ensure visibility for their groups, generally in a particular area. As visual kei record companies go, Matina was perhaps the most prolific. Of course, this was due in no small part to the company's founder, Kisaki, who, in spite of questionable business practices and questionable musical talent, built an empire consisting of countless bands and a nearly countrywide presence across 3 subsidiary companies, the Matina label in the West, Eternal in the East, and Storm in Hokkaido. Unlike quite a few of his contemporaries who would prefer to distance themselves from the genre, Kisaki seems to love to celebrate the history of his bands and his involvement with visual kei. Or he's just resting on his laurels. Either way, although Matina closed its doors in about 2003, we're still getting occasional revival concerts and memorial releases to this day. In 2007, Kisaki's second label, Under Code, released 2 best-of compilations of 2 of his former bands, Mirage and Syndrome. Both are 2-disc sets with about 14 tracks on each disc, so they're almost complete discographies. The sets come with simple but attractive jackets and full-color booklets printed on the same glossy stock as most magazine covers. I really hope I get lucky and these scan correctly. In each booklet, there are lyrics for each song, 2 pages explaining the band's history, and a fold-out timeline detailing live appearances and media releases. The discs have these nicely printed matching labels, too. I feel like well-designed or aesthetically pleasing physical media contributed so much to the enjoyment of this music. It was one of the major visual components of visual kei. The physical media, being something tangible that you could own, meant that you had an aesthetically and emotionally valuable keepsake to go along with the music. I don't want to go too far with this tangent, and Matina, I'm gonna let you finish, but Nagoya-based label Donuts Record West used to print the most beautiful labels on their discs. Most of Phobia's releases are actually kind of lacking in cohesion, and Vizel are about as sonically interesting as a lamppost, but to take one of these off of a shelf and put it into a player and then thumb through the booklets while listening adds an enjoyable visual and tactile element to the experience. Anyway, getting back to the point, last summer, in celebration of 20 years having passed since its inception, Matina released this collection, Collection Z, of tracks previously available only on demos released in limited quantities. Most Matina releases were demos released in limited quantities, but whatever. The physical media on which these songs were originally released is genuinely hard to find, a fact which is more or less irrelevant in the year 2017 due to the presence of an elephant in the room named YouTube. So, if you believe that the only intrinsically valuable component of music is music, then you might be wondering why someone would spend their hard-earned 4,000 yen or so on pre-ordering this disc like I did. However, the idealists in the audience will understand the value that something like this could potentially have. As I said earlier, a nice lyric booklet, some band photos, and an attractive jacket design could potentially make this into a fuzzy, nostalgia-inducing treasure for the fans. So what have we got here? Well, on the cover, there's a photo of an old tree next to a lake that seems to have been composited with a photo of a morning sky and then heavily darkened to make it look ominous. It's not a bad image, definitely not the most exciting thing in the world. I guess it looks a little mysterious, so we'll go with it. Then we have a little bit of text at the bottom in everyone's favorite font, Times New Roman. Pretty basic, but maybe it's just meant to get us psyched up for what's inside, like the dull, weathered exterior of an old orugoru that you open up to reveal all of the beautifully crafted, artistic, and mechanical intricacies inside. Okay, super low contrast picture of, I guess that's Kisaki. Oh, co-produced by Shinobu from Zephyr. Special thanks to the usual suspects of Indie VK, including Dynamite Tommy of Free Will, who provided manufacturing and distribution for Matina from the beginning, and Kaiki of Salil, who probably financed Machina's inception, as it started as one of his own sub-labels, etc. Okay, well, at least I can't wait to see all the lyrics and the band photos in this booklet. Oh. Well, first of all, it's not a booklet. It's just folded in half to look like a booklet. There's an awesome photo of Machina's bands in full costume that looks like it's from Crossgate or some other video or omnibus or something, but it's been decontrasted and darkened, and it's had a track list laid over top of it so you can't see it. The track list does have the names and release dates of the original media for each song, and the adjacent page shows pictures of how creative and attractive some of the original jackets were. So here is a page that shows that someone affiliated with Matina or Free Will knows a thing or two about a thing or two when it comes to designing attractive physical media. Actually, the cover art for this disc was indeed designed by Aki Okamura, who is the same person who designed some of these here, and most of the album art for Kisaki's bands from Las 80s all the way through the era of Machina, all the way up through the time of his second label Under Code. Well, anyone can have an off day, I suppose. The disc is printed with the exact same picture of a tree as the insert in the jewel case, except there's a compact disc logo and a cute catalog number referencing Machina's anniversary date of March 20th, but no copyright or jazz rock information, so it just looks like a bootleg somebody made at home on an inkjet printer. That's it. So, as a collector's package, this disc is rather underwhelming in its design and therefore is kind of pointless. But the silver lining on these clouds behind the picture of a tree is that the quality of these recording dubs, notably those that were taken from tape, is probably the best that you'll be able to hear even if you own the original media. So if you listen to music on something other than your white-hot cell phone speaker and that matters to you, then this is worth checking out. Here's a little bit of each track. Mirage's Escape is a straightforward 2-beat pop-rock song that's musically somewhere between Luna C's Wish and Deja Vu. It's a classic VK composition. Listen to how the instruments play around the drums, especially in the bridge and the chorus, with those bright, brittle guitars matching the cymbal hits in the right channel, and then filling in the vocal melody in the left channel, with the bass providing a steady stream of texture to match the bass drum and snare hits, sliding notes up to the second octave in order to create those nice swells in the music during fills. Mirage just might be my favorite of all the bands Kisaki has been a part of over the years. Das Wasser don't stick out in my memory as being the most remarkable band, but as I'm going back and rediscovering their discography, I'm finding a lot of really interesting and experimental tracks that don't really sound like anything else out there. This song, the title of which I think is read Rinne Tensho, meaning something like an endless cycle of spiritual reincarnation, sounds like a group of monks performing an exorcism in a Jidaigeki V cinema horror film right before Yagyu Jubei fights an army of zombie ninjas. Track 3, Cecil, also belongs to Das Wasser, but it's a much more familiar style of visual rock song that takes cues from Lunassee's True Blue and a lot of other stuff. It has one of those familiar natural minor scale progressions like a ton of VK hits. This one goes 1, 6, 7, 5. So it's not exactly the super common 6, 5, 1, 3 or 6, 7, 1, 3 that you hear in most really catchy stuff, but it's close enough to get stuck in your head. Unfortunately, the immature sounding vocal holds it back. Track 4, Distray's Kagami no Naka de no Bats Bats Bats, is some kind of thrashy thing that starts off kind of boring with a repetitive gang shout, but it takes an awesome turn in the middle when the song goes quiet and the singer tells us a cool short horror story.
いつもは見ない鏡の中に新しい私が映っていた。目をそらしても彼は私をずっと見ていた。彼は急にナイフを手にして私に差し出した。私はいつの間にかそのナイフを手に振りかざしていた。新しい私が目を覚ましていく。ゆっくりとただゆっくりとこのまま支配されてしまうのか。鏡の中の映らないもう一人の私に。
Do you ever wonder what all this XXX stuff is all about in VK? Dula Quartz's Dear From singles seem to suggest the usual Japanese interpretation, which is like an abbreviation for a kiss. But this song and Raphael's XXX Byo are both about existential crises, so I guess it could stand for either anata or watashi, or both as a reference to mind-body dualism. Visual Kei songwriters seem to have a thing for the philosophies of Plato and Descartes, like metempsychosis and that sort of thing. Gazette's original name was even Cartesian something or other. Anyway, that's just my guess. Moving on. Track 5, Azalea's Kamikakushi no Yoru, or God Hiding Night, or The Night That Hid God, or The Night We Hid God, or This Is What Happens When You Translate Japanese Out of Context, is a simplistic mid-tempo rock song with pretty heavy instrumentation. Maybe it's the distorted bass or the simple structure, but there's something that sounds quite Western to my ears, ignoring the obligatory juvenile-sounding vocal, of course. I don't think every vocalist needs to be a powerhouse or anything, as sometimes weaker voices sound emotive or creepy in the context of this kind of music, but when you beef up your instrumentation like this and the vocal comes in sounding like a Doraemon character, it just seems doubly awkward. Track 6, Veladana's Fermata no Firma. Oh no, is this a comedy track? Oh, god, I hate... Well, actually it's not so bad. Veladana, who are generally more of an X-type of hair metal band, sound a little like Kamaitachi or early Lavion Rose playing this rowdy punk style kind of music. It's nowhere near as annoying as it could be, until it turns into an Irish pub song towards the end. Track 7. Hey, it's Yayoi from La Miss Fairy and Deadly Sanctuary. Oh, this must be Angel Oh, nope, it's Vice Risk. This guy was in so many bands. He's not a great singer by any stretch of the imagination, but what an instantly recognizable voice. This song, Moonlight Serenade, is not the most interesting thing in the world, though. Track 8, Zephyr's Wings of Sepia, is a uniquely pleasant mid-tempo ballad that really doesn't start sounding like VK until its chorus. It actually reminds me a little bit of Kagura of all things, especially during the second verse. The vocalist from Azalea returns on track 9, Sari's Kawareta Omocha, or Broken Toy, although I think he fits this style of traditional VK instrumentation much better. This is the kind of song you've heard and loved 100 times already if you spent any time listening to Visual K. Track 10 is Easyqual, which sounds like it would be a good name for a generic brand of cough syrup, doing Shirabe, which sounds like exactly what I think of whenever I hear the name Matina, like a guitar being played through the synth organ picked up by a microcassette recorder in someone's pocket. The drums may or may not be real, it's kind of too lo-fi to tell. Needless to say, I love this. Track 11, I'm not sure how to read. It's something like Hakumu to Kokumu no Kyouso Kyoya, but in English, Crazy Performance Night of Black and White Fog by Mr. Rouge. This song and track 10 were originally coupled together on a single tape and share the same kind of iconic Matina tones and sound quality. Mr. Rouge are a little more playful, and the sound of the bass sticks out more as a melodic component, but I think I like the composition of track 10 a little bit more. track 12, Kse, or Habit, also belongs to Mr. Rouge, and it's definitely a tape transfer. It's that same kind of old VK sound that you either love or hate. Is this really the whole song? It sounds like half of it's been cut and faded out. Count to 4 in German, say Mawaru and cackle like a crazy clown. Meredith Grail are here for tracks 13, 14, and 15. I think a lot of indie bands really tried hard to achieve the same kind of sound and aesthetic, but these guys were the real deal. They're generic in the most endearing way possible, the embodiment of every 90s VK trope imaginable. The album closes with an acoustic version of Syndrome's Arubino that's a little different from the version that's on the Prelude 4 Omnibus, and has a startling increase in recording quality and fidelity. Not too exciting, but it's a pretty song, and Asagi has a nice voice. All in all, this is a good collection of some uncommon Matina material that's worth hearing. However, I wouldn't consider it a must-own, as it's quite expensive for having so little value as a shelf ornament. I would instead encourage other fans to seek out the original CDs and tapes instead, since so much of this stuff is just sitting on Yahoo auctions or in bookstores unloved. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with someone else who might be interested. I really appreciate any kind of attention this show gets because it is such a niche subject, and I don't think there are a whole lot of fans still left out there. では、また会える日まで桜の木の下で静かに眠ろう。